To finish up this brief little series we've done on Proverbs chapter 4, I want to finish with this idea of staying focused as we're going through life, to have our focus on God and what honors Him. How do we do that in our daily life? How do you guys do that going to school and the different activities you have? So let's first look at the text and see what it says in verses 25 through 27. It says, "Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. Ponder the path of your feet, and then all of your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil." So we see here in these verses this idea of looking straight ahead, having a focus, fixing your gaze straight ahead, that you're mindful of the direction you're heading, that you make sure that the direction you're going is a good direction, and that you don't swerve off that path from the left or to the right. And so let's look at that practically today, what that looks like then for us. So how can we stay focused? What are some ways we could go about doing that? Well, here's a few questions I think are good to get us started. The first one is, whatever decisions you're making, whatever activities, whatever things you're doing with friends, whatever movies or music you're watching or listening to, ask yourself the question, does this honor God? Are the things that I'm doing, do they go against what God's standard might be? Are they honoring to Him, or are they not? I think that's always a good question to start with. Look at your life with your boyfriend, with your friends. Are you doing things on the weekends that you know in your heart of hearts isn't honoring God? That's a good question to ask as far as keeping your focus straight ahead. Another good question to ask is, does whatever I want to do honor my parents in their rules? One of the 10 commandments that we see in the Bible, God clearly said that we should honor our parents, that we should obey them and their rules. And I think it's important for us to remember that rules, though sometimes seem annoying, and maybe sometimes in certain situations might be unreasonable, but in general, rules are for our protection. And I think it's important for you to know that your parents have rules in their home, hopefully, and those are meant for your protection. Whether you understand all of them or agree with them, they're for your protection. And that's how God works too. His rules are meant to be for our protection. So a good question to ask yourself is, whether you like it or not, does what I want to do, or this activity or this movie or this thing, is this honoring to my parents and their rules, or is it disobeying them? And then the last good question to ask is it honoring to my own body? For all of us, we make decisions on a weekly basis, and the older we get, the more prevalent this becomes, whether it's what we eat, whether it's what we drink, whether it's you choosing to smoke something, whether it's doing things physically with a boyfriend. Ask yourself the question, do those things honor my own body? Am I making decisions today that I am going to regret or could do some serious emotional or physical harm to me in the future? These are good questions to ask as far as keeping your focus straight ahead, keeping your focus on what honors God and what's best for you because of the rules He's put in place for your protection. Ask those questions of yourself. Now, if you answer no to any of those questions, let's say this, don't do it. If you can say, nope, what I want to do or what I'm thinking about doing does not honor God, or nope, that doesn't honor my parents, or nope, that's not even honoring to my own body, then just make the choice not to do it. Know that in order to protect yourself from veering off the path that God has for you, you can make the choices that keep you walking the straight and narrow. And that's so important to recognize. Just don't do it. If you can answer no to any of those questions, just stop yourself from making that choice. And then I think another good thing to think about is, why do I even consider it? If there's any chance that it could do dishonor to my relationship with the Lord or to my parents or to myself, why do I even consider it? I think that's a good thing to wonder. Why do I want to veer off the path towards this thing? Is it worth it? Is it going to bring good into my life, or is it going to bring harm? I think these are good things to think about in this concept of trying to stay focused on God. So here's some questions I want you to pause and talk about today. First of all, how do we know what honors God? That's why it's so important for us to study the Bible. The Bible is our guide. It's going to lead us to God's standards and the things that He's set up for our protection. I think it's good for you guys to take a few minutes to talk about if you have an example of a decision you've made that brought you down a path you really did not want to go. recognize that you can make choices differently and you can stay on that path. You can keep your feet straight. You don't have to veer off the path by making bad choices. And you know what? I think it's a really good question. I know I felt this as a high schooler. Are the decisions I'm really making now going to have that big of an effect on me in the future? And the answer is yes. Again, through this series, we've learned this idea of guarding your heart and recognizing the things we let in are going to come out in our choices and the things that we deem important in life. So pay attention, stay focused on the things that honor God, because it will protect you from so much in the end. So take a few minutes today to talk about this idea of staying focused.